Hey, welcome to today's bonus example. What you see on my screen are two lists. A list stored in the contents variable, and it has 3 items. It's too long, but we're going to fix that. You'll see how. And then we have another list, file names. This also has 3 items. So these are supposed to be file paths. Each of them is a string. And those are supposed to be the content that will go to each of these files. So the first content, the second content, and the third content. So we're going to write a program, and when we execute that program, the program is going to generate these 3 files inside this files directory. And each of the files is going to contain the corresponding content. So the first file is going to contain that first content, the second file is going to contain that second content, and the third file is going to contain the third content. So let's see how we can create this program which generates these 3 files. Before we begin, I would want you to create a Python file and write this content. So 2 lists, 3 items each. You can write some dummy content, whatever you like, for these strings. And I would also want you to create a files directory under the main project directory and just leave it empty. The directory will be populated by Python with these 3 files. The Python file itself can be anywhere. It can be in the main directory, where main.py is, or it can be in another subdirectory, as in my case it is here under bonus 6. With that, let's begin coding. So how do we create multiple files? Well, when we say the word multiple, that means we need a for loop which iterates over content and over file names. So we're looking at 2 variables at the same time. We need to fetch this and that in the first iteration, then in the second iteration fetch that, so get that and this one. And to be able to do that, we use these 2 variables and we iterate over, well, should we use enumerate? It doesn't sound like the solution to me, because enumerate creates this kind of object, so a multiple tuples, like that. And each tuple has the index as the first item and the item itself as the second item. But this time we're not interested about indices. We're interested on the items of that and that. And to do that we use zip, the zip function, which works basically like enumerate, and I'll demonstrate you how. So if we have lists A and list B, 10, 20, 30, then X is going to be zip A and B. So that's what we enter here as well, zip contents and file names. So not content and file name, but contents and file names, these 2 lists. Here as well we have these 2 lists. So if you print out zip, you get this representation of the object, but if you convert it into list, as we did with the enumerate object, then you get this representation, which is the same structure as the structure of the enumerate object. The difference is that the first items here are actual items of the first list, and the second items are the items of the second list. So then we can continue our for loop here. We create a file object in each iteration and use the open function. So the file path, now what is file path going to be? The file paths are in file names, so we're going to use file name. File name extracts doc.txt in the first iteration, but in my case the files are going to be inside files. Therefore I want to construct a string using an f string. So it's going to be files slash, and then file name is the variable, and then close the f string. So what we're doing here is, if file name is equal to doc.txt, then this is going to create the file path, files slash doc.txt. So a file in this path is going to be created in write mode. So we want to create files. That means we want to say write here, not read. And then file.write. And here goes the content. So in the first iteration, content will be this first string. Let's try to run this. Run. We get an error initially, file not found, no such file or directory, files slash doc.txt. How comes when files actually exist? Even if I delete these files, because of course we expect the program to create them, so if I run this again, we're gonna get the same error. So it's not related to the files being there already. The problem is that my bonus6.py file is inside this bonus directory. So bonus is here and files are there. So what we need to do is we first want to go one directory up using these two dots, that's the syntax, and then slash. So that means the Python file is inside bonus folder, so we go up one level, and at this point we are in the app1 directory, which is one level up bonus, and then we go to files. So at this point we can access files. If your script, if your bonus6.py file is in the root directory, then all you need to do is that. You don't need to write this part. So if I run this now, we're going to get the files generated successfully. doc.txt, presentation.txt, and reports.txt. Now, I mentioned earlier that this list is too long. We can fix that by splitting these into multiple lines. All you have to do is go after the first comma and press enter, and then go to the second comma, press enter, and the list will be spread out in multiple lines. It's still a list, the object is exactly the same. So this is also part of the syntax, another way to create a list. If I run the program, it will run again, so we still have these files. These are always overwritten whenever we run the program, because the write method overwrites any existing files. So that's how you can create multiple lines of code for one single expression. So the expression in this case as this list construction. And you can also split a string if you want. So if the string was very long and maybe you want to split it here, you can just put your cursor there, press enter, and PyCharm will split it. If you are on another IDE, then maybe this will not work automatically. So perhaps you want to do this manually. So the way you split a string is you just close the first string where you want it, and then close the quote. So you open quote here, you open quote there, and then in the next line, again, you open the quote and you close the quote. So all that is treated as one string, so it is one single string. Note that this will not work in the Python console. So if you want to have a string in multiple lines and you execute, that string is actually going to be executed. It is going to be stored in the Python current session. So this split only works when you are working on .py files. Now, if the string was not in a list, it would have to be splitted differently. So let's suppose that A is one single string. I'm a string on my own. So when strings are individual, you can still press enter there and split it. But PyCharm actually will add this backslash, and that means this is still one string. So if the string is outside of a list, a backslash is used additionally. Both parts of the string are still enclosed in quotes, but there is a backslash in the first line. And if you want to keep splitting, you want to add another backslash and the other part of the string there, and so on. So this is the case when you have very long strings that go beyond the horizontal space of your editor. And it becomes useful to split them like that, so the code remains easier to see, to read and manage. And that's about this example. Thanks a lot for following.